The story I chose to approach is Brownies by ZZ Packer. I researched and analyzed it from a psychological and cultural perspective. ZZ Packer was born on January 12, 1973 in Chicago, Illinois. After high school, Packer attended Yale University, followed by much other higher education before she began writing short stories. Her first acclaimed short story was Drinking Coffee Elsewhere, which became the title story of her most famous collection of short stories. Among many honors Packer received, this includes the 5 Under 35 Award, the Rona Jaff Foundation Writers Award, the Bellingham Review Award, which she won for the short story Brownies, which is the short story I will be discussing in this presentation. The story begins by setting the scene at a camp with two brownie troops, Snot's troop of all black girls and Troop 909 of all white girls. It is immediately clear to the reader that Snot's troop despises Troop 909 due to racial discrimination. Someone from Snot's troop claims that they heard one of the Troop 909 girls use the N-word, which makes the girls furious. They immediately decide to plot for revenge by attacking the Troop 909 girls in the bathroom where they would be separate from their camp leaders. When they finally confront the girls, they seem extremely scared, and the adults for their troop intervene very quickly. This is when Snot's troop, as well as the reader, learns that the Troop 909 girls suffer from a mental illness that causes them to repeat what they hear unintentionally. The next day, the girls of Snot's troop are on the bus and continually mock the Troop 909 girls, despite the fact that their mental illness can't be helped. In addition to this, Snot tells the story of her father taking advantage of the Mennonites so that he can see, quote, a white man on his knees doing something for a black man for free, end quote. The story ends with this anecdote and Snot having the realization that, quote, there was something mean in the world that she could not stop. The two criticisms I chose to focus on are psychological perspective and cultural perspective. I thought it important to use two criticisms because each of the groups of young girls is dealing with a different issue. The first article I looked into defines and explains echolalia, the mental disorder that the girls of Troop 909 suffer from. The article states that echolalia is a verbal disorder defined as a meaningless repetition of the words of others. It is pathological, automatic, and non-intentional behavior, often observed in a variety of neurological and psychiatric disorders, and above all in autism. Source 1. This particular disorder is significant because it shows the effect of parental and societal guidance on children and how truly impressionable they are. The story itself states that, quote, not all of them have the most progressive of parents, so if they had heard a bad word, they might have repeated it, but I guarantee it would not have been intentional, end quote. Disorder or not, all children take what they learn from adults and choose to believe it because that is the way that children's minds develop. This occurs similarly with Snot's troop, in that these young girls are highly aware of racism because of the way society has affected them. In my second research article, a study was completed that examined the exposure children and adolescents have to discrimination based on their race. The results state that, as anticipated, the racism scores were higher for the older participants than the younger ones. Perceptions of racism were significantly higher in the older cohort for the African American respondents compared to all others. For the younger cohort, Latino children reported significantly greater perceptions of racism. The characters in Brownies certainly seem to match the study, shown by the awareness of the young black girls to the offensiveness of the N-word and their immediate aggressive reaction to this word being used toward them. In the case of both brownie troops, the children have been highly impacted by their parents and societal beliefs. Children are among the most impressionable people because they are learning and mimicking from everything going on around them. While the girls of Troop 909 do suffer from a mental disorder that causes them to unintentionally repeat things, this is a common trait in all children to a certain extent. For young people, parents are the primary source of learning, and much more often than not, children grow up to have the same beliefs and values as their parents, which can be good or harmful. Packer portrays this story as two groups of people set up against one another, which demonstrates a clear representation of segregation due to race. Even as children, these young girls have clearly been taught that they belong with one group and people from the opposite group must be inherently bad. Racism is so present in the lives of these young girls that the slightest confrontation leads to extreme aggression between them. The girls of Snot's troop specifically are so quick to jump on the opportunity to believe that the white girls are bad, even after they know that the girls cannot be blamed for their actions. The young black girls have been raised to believe that they are inevitably pitted against people of a different race because of their exposure to racial discrimination. And finally, Packer is demonstrating a message that mental illness needs to be treated with more severity and respect. After Snott's troop learns that the girls from Troop 909 suffer from mental illness, they continue to mock them and call them retarded. This word is being considered more and more offensive today. However, people still do not take into consideration the true severity of mental disorders, and young children who suffer from them are considered abnormal and deformed. Overall, Packer wants readers to understand the impressionability of children and how the desensitivity of race and mental illness needs to be stopped.